Imagine a port terminal so strategic that it can change the course of two global superpowers. Now imagine this terminal being built not in Shanghai or New York, but right on the coast of São Paulo, in the largest port in Latin America. We're talking about a $285 million investment led by one of the largest Chinese state-owned agribusiness companies, Kofco, which decided to set foot and place its cranes in the logistical heart of Brazil, the port of Santos. But this isn't just about concrete, ships, and exports. It's about the future of trade relations between Brazil, China, and the United States. It's about how building this terminal can accelerate Brazil's dependence on grain and meat exports, and at the same time, intensify the crisis for American farmers. In this video, you'll understand how this project can change the game of international trade. Why is China investing heavily in our biggest port? And what does that really mean for Brazil? The Port of Santos is not only Latin America's largest port, but also a crucial pillar of Brazil's economy. Located on the coast of the state of São Paulo, it connects agricultural production from the countryside to the most distant markets on the planet. In 2024, the port broke records by handling around 180 million tons of cargo, with more than half of that volume coming directly from the countryside, with highlights for corn, sugar, and our absolute champion, soybeans. In 2023, Brazil exported 101.845 million tons of soybeans, and it wasn't a small group that came through here. The Port of Santos alone accounted for about 40% of exports to China. That explains why Kofco, the Chinese state-owned giant, is investing heavily to build one of the largest export terminals in the world, right there in Santos. With an investment of $285 million, Kofco's new terminal will be dedicated almost exclusively to the shipment of grains. This structure will allow the state-owned company to triple its shipping capacity in Brazil from 4.5 million to up to 14 million tons per year. All of this with the clear goal of supplying China and reducing its dependence on agricultural exports from the United States. Why Santos? Besides the strategic location and the vast rail and road infrastructure that converge at the port, there's another decisive factor: saturation. Over 91% of the port's grain export capacity is already being used, reports Folha de São Paulo. The construction of this new terminal, therefore, emerges as a direct response to this overload and as a direct logistical bridge between Brazilian agribusiness and Chinese ports. What is being built in Santos is not just concrete and steel. It's a new international trade route being drawn before our eyes. Building one of the largest grain terminals in the world outside of China is without a doubt a feat of engineering, commercial strategy, and geopolitics. That's exactly what's happening in the heart of the Port of Santos, where the Chinese state-owned company Kofco is investing around $285 million to expand its global presence and consolidate Brazil as its main agricultural supplier. The terminal is being built in a strategic area with direct access to Rumo's railway network and major southwest highways. This logistical integration is one of the pillars of the project, as it ensures the fast and efficient transport of grains coming from the Midwest, especially soybeans and corn, to the coast of São Paulo. The idea is simple: shorten distances, cut costs, and boost margins. The new structure will feature vertical storage silos, intelligent climate control systems, and automated conveyor belts with a capacity of up to 2,000 tons per hour. This entire operation will be exclusively focused on exports, avoiding logistical bottlenecks and ensuring agility during peak periods. In addition, Kofco is already planning to jump from its current capacity of 4.5 million tons per year to 14 million tons, practically tripling its export volume from Brazil. For this, the project includes dedicated berths, deep drafts for large ships, and automated systems that speed up loading. inspired by Chinese ports like Dalian, a global leader in agricultural logistics. But it's not just about productivity. The project also adopts sustainable technologies and impact mitigation practices. The terminal will feature particulate containment systems, platforms with acoustic insulation, and rainwater collection for operational use. All this is to comply with both Brazilian environmental regulations and international standards, which are increasingly required in foreign trade. Although Kofco keeps some phases of the construction confidential, it is known that the works are already progressing at a fast pace, with foundations underway and earthworks practically completed. The terminal is expected to start operations in late 2025 or early 2026. To give you an idea of the scale of what is being done, the volume of grain expected to be handled is equivalent to about 300,000 trucks per year. In naval terms, this means doubling Kofco's current capacity in Brazil and significantly increasing the number of ships loaded for Asia. But what stands out the most at the port of Santos is the strategic precision. Every square meter built serves a clear purpose: to guarantee China a safe, direct, and independent route from external commercial pressures, especially from the United States. In the end, what is being built on the shores of the Atlantic is more than just a port terminal. It is a key piece in the global food trade system where Brazil exports its land and crops, and China secures its supply for decades. The Kofco terminal in Santos is much more than a $285 million investment in infrastructure. It is, in fact, a turning point on the geopolitical chessboard of international trade, with direct effects on three global giants: Brazil, China, and the United States. For decades, the United States was the main supplier of grains to the Chinese market. This dependence, however, began to be challenged in 2018 when the trade war between Washington and Beijing escalated abruptly. The tariffs imposed by the United States and China's retaliation sent a message. Global food trade is not just an economic issue, but also a strategic one. Brazil filled this gap as a main player. Rich in arable land with high productivity and more neutral diplomatic ties, the country quickly took the lead in exporting soybeans, corn, meat, and pulp to China. In 2023 alone, Brazilian agricultural exports to the Asian giant reached $166.55 billion, accounting for 49% of Brazil's total exports that year, and consolidating an increasingly symbiotic relationship. With the new terminal in Santos, this connection gains depth, literally. The structure will allow China to significantly increase its direct imports from Brazil, further reducing its dependence on the United States, especially during times of political tension. And there's an important detail. The terminal is operated by a Chinese state-owned company, which means that China itself partly controls its supply route in Brazil. It's as if the country had set up a logistics embassy on Brazilian territory, a common strategy in the so-called New Silk Road. From the American point of view, this raises red flags. The United States Department of Agriculture estimates that just with the first trade war, American producers lost more than $27 billion in exports. Now, with China National Cereals, Oils and Foodstuffs Corporation's infrastructure in Brazil expanding, farmers in the United States face an even more challenging scenario, losing ground to a direct competitor in a highly strategic port with the approval of the Chinese government. Meanwhile, China is moving forward with other logistics integration projects in South America, such as the Bioceanic Railway, which will connect Brazil's Midwest to a megaport in Peru, cutting almost 10 days of shipping time to Asia. All of this is part of a clear vision to control routes, reduce risks, and ensure the food supply for the world's largest population. Brazil, meanwhile, is treading carefully. On one hand, it gains prominence and revenue from agricultural exports, but on the other, it deepens its dependence on commodity sales and sees its industry being suffocated by Chinese manufactured products. It's the trade balance paradox. We export tons of grains, but we import the equipment we used to manufacture ourselves. The new Kofco terminal stood along the port of Santos. It's inevitable to compare with the American grain terminals in the Gulf of Mexico and the Midwest of the United States, which until recently easily dominated grain exports to China. The United States has some of the largest and most advanced grain terminals in the world, such as those located in the ports of New Orleans, Houston, and Long Beach. Together, these hubs handle tens of thousands of tons of soy juice annually, with a strong presence of multinationals like DM Cargill and Bundt. To give you an idea, the Cargill terminal in Louisiana alone has a capacity of more than 10 million tons per year with direct shipping to Asia via the Panama Canal. Now let's see what's being built in Brazil. The new Kofco terminal is located in Santos. Its goal is to increase its export capacity from 4.5 to an impressive 14 million tons per year. In other words, it will be equivalent to or even larger than some of the biggest terminals in the United States, rivaling them in scale and efficiency. But there's an even more significant competitive advantage: its geographic proximity to the agricultural heartland of Brazil. States like Mato Grosso, Goiás, and Paraná account for a large share of Brazil's soybean and corn production. Logistics investments in railways, waterways, and highways help these grains reach the port of Santos faster and at lower cost. Lower logistics costs mean higher margins for exporters and greater attractiveness for China. Another key difference is the shareholding control model. In the United States, the terminals are private or operated by multinationals. In the Brazilian case, the terminal will be directly controlled by a Chinese state-owned company. This eliminates intermediaries, increases China's control over the supply, and guarantees long-term contracts with Brazilian producers, something that the Americans can't replicate with the same geopolitical stability. There's also a symbolic side to this comparison. While the United States faces trade tensions with China and imposes unilateral tariffs, Brazil is deepening its strategic partnership with the world's largest buyer. The result? A possible redesign of global agribusiness routes, with the gravitational axis slowly shifting from New Orleans to Santos. If there's one word that defines this new scenario, it's repositioning. And here at Construction Time, we've already analyzed several Brazilian infrastructure projects. But it's rare to see a foreign investment with as much, perhaps yes or no, transformative potential as this one. China National Cereals, Oils, and Foodstuffs Corporation Terminal. The China National Cereals, Oils, and Foodstuffs Corporation Terminal at the Port of Santos is not just a new structure of concrete and steel. It is a geopolitical statement embedded in silos, conveyors, and bulk carriers. We're talking about a project that could redraw the lines of global agricultural trade to drastically reduce China's dependence on the United States and, at the same time, insert Brazil even more deeply into the strategic route of global agribusiness. But that comes at a price. While billions of dollars flow in through the commodity trade channel, Brazil faces a dilemma: export growth with low value added and a silent deindustrialization process that threatens the national productive base. Will we be a breadbasket, or a brain, a supplier, or an innovator? The country's future may depend on how we balance this scale. Attract structural investments without giving up productive sovereignty. Because true development is not limited to the export of grains. It also requires technology, education, and industry that remain on Brazilian soil. After all, a port can either channel wealth or drain it. What defines this is not the concrete, but the direction a nation chooses to follow. Thank you for watching until the end. What do you think of this Chinese terminal in Brazil? It's good for Brazilians, right? What do you think about all this? Leave your opinion in the comments below. I'll stop here. A big hug and see you in the next video.